So speaking of, yeah, sorry, go ahead, Ollie.
I was going to say, I'm disappointed that Phil isn't wearing red like Whynde, because that would have just set off the whole Greenville Santa look, wouldn't it? But anyway.
Oh.
Maybe you deliberately didn't do that, Phil. Maybe you deliberately wore blue so that we wouldn't get confused.
Thought the hat was going to be the thing. Listen, the hat is Santa, and this is my Hanukkah outfit.
Okay. Awesome.
Very good. Well, Whynde, I'm glad you're here. I know that you were really busy and really late. And I don't know if you recall, but
oh yes. Oh, that's right. That's what it was. I knew it was funny. Awesome.
Nice.
Right up. I remember that.
If I use this, I'll definitely blur out your phone numbers for sure.
Okay, that's great.
Which is great because the only one it's a solicitation with a phone number. So I mean, it's like
across state lines as well, right?
But one night only once. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That's awesome.
Wow, that's so weird.
The first one's free.
It's not kind of how I would have put Whynde. It's not how I think of her, right? It's always so prim and proper, and here we are.
It's in writing right there.
Yeah, right.
The thing is, autocorrect on your phone doesn't lie. It knows what you talk about. So that's what I was saying.
Exactly.
I mean,
the most commonly used word is not sec.
It's not sec. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It auto-corrected sec.
Wow.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Consultants Saying Things. I'm Chris Lockhart, and it's a Christmas miracle. We have the whole cast. We have Oliver Cronk in London or in Reading, somewhere in there, right? Close enough. We have Phil Yanov in beautiful Greenville, South Carolina, where the sky is blue and the sun is out. And we have Whynde Kuehn somewhere north of the Arctic Circle in Norway.
Where it's dark.
Yeah. Well, listen, Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy holidays. This is our annual sort of Christmas themed episode. It's always a very special episode. And I'm really excited because today I thought we could talk about sort of two things, right? One, everyone's talking about let's do a retroactive, session and think about all the things that happened this year. And it's like, that's too complicated. And maybe no one really wants to hear that anyway. But if there's one thing, what's the one thing that each of us has sort of learned from this year? And is that thing something that the cats out there that are consultants on the ground, that they might take away and think, I'm glad that they learned that. I now know that thing. And so I don't have to go, they could get a jump start, right? By learning something that we have learned. And then the second thing I kind of wanted to do, and we've done this a couple times before, but do we have any nominations for a thing of the year, right? And it could be an article, it could be a episode of a podcast, it could be a picture, it could be a meme, right? We've done memes before. So I thought that we could sort of do those two things. And in lieu of having, where we've done in the past, a revolving cast of people come in and anything like that, let's just the four of us talk about those things. So with that, Whynde, let's do ladies first. I mean, I would love to know. I mean, you've done so much in the past year, right? So you've been bouncing all over the world, doing all kinds of stuff. The couple books, right? What was your sort of learning for the year? And I can't wait to hear this because it's going to be good. And anyone listening, if you're going to listen to any bit of it, listen to this bit.
I don't know if it's going to be good, and maybe it's a little bit unexpected, but amongst all that, I think my biggest learning is you've got to keep reinventing yourself, and you've got to be ready to go back to a serious beginner mindset. And I'll explain because as much as there's events and expansion of programs and books and things like that, in my personal life, I moved to Norway a number of years ago, but I've really leaned into a lot of things this year. I've spent hours in social studies taking tests. I've spent hours learning Norwegian and taking tests. I have started learning how to sail this year. And, with all these things at one time, it's not like you're learning something cool like AI, or I'm going to study a discipline or get another degree. This is like going back to beginner stuff. This is like, I want to talk, about social democracy, and I can only talk about what I ate for dinner. I want to sail to Shetland from Norway, but I'm still learning how to put sails up and down and how to tack. And it's a lot of humility, but it's also been a really good space to say, yeah, this is what it's like to learn again and not be additive. And I think I'm also, just with all this personal side, it's also opened up a space for me to say, how do I need to think differently about the world and all this expertise I've gained and take it to a next level. So, my lesson learned, just like sometimes you got to go back to base camp, you got to have a lot of humility, and you got to be okay that you just suck for a while, even when you're really good at, being good at things. And I think that's really good for all of us, especially me.
Is it a Viking ship? Like, what kind of ship are you sailing? You're sailing west to Shetland. It's another invasion. The Norwegians are
God
coming.
save us. God save us the fury of the Norsemen. Yeah, there we go.
Coming.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That's really fascinating. At what point during this year did you say, you know what? I'm not doing enough. I need to learn how to sail.
Well, that part happened in July, but you know what? It was actually the combination of that on top of the Norwegian and the social studies. And by the way, I've taken driving tests, all this stuff. It's like, I am just really tired of sucking at everything, and all the new stuff that I should already know. But it actually, as it all became additive, as I started sailing this summer, it's like, no, this is really good because I'm just now going to embrace it and just really enjoy it, right? And just be in that space.
I love that.
That's awesome. I had no idea that you were doing this. And because we've focused on all those professional accomplishments we've seen you working at over the course of the year that have been fantastic. But at the same time, you're teaching yourself to be a Norwegian, which is, the other program you've taken on. Wow.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Going all in.
Yeah.
It's amazing. What can a new or old consultant learn from that? Should we all just learn how to sail, or do something like that? Or is this it can apply to professional stuff too, right? Like you said, I can talk about AI or whatever. Oliver's done a lot with agentic AI and stuff like that. I mean, that's kind of ground up learning. Is that work for professional stuff too?
I think there's additive learning, which is great, but I think what we can take away is find spaces, personal and or professional, that really push you. And if you're doing something different or personally, it opens you up to new things, even professionally. Or like I said, do a pivot. And I don't mean hey, everybody leave your jobs tomorrow, but go do something really different because it will stretch you. So
outside the wheelhouse, outside the box.
Outside the wheelhouse. Exactly. Yeah.
I love this. And I guess I have a similar sort of story. I think you all know that in April I took on the mad idea of building a cabin in my garden, fairly sizable cabin,
man cave cabin,
and I thought it's going to take a week, and it took a week to nearly destroy my marriage. That's what took a week, as I wrote my wife into various bits of laboring. So I agree with you, Whynde. I think and this is true throughout the years, actually. A few years ago, I think you probably know as well, I've done cycling challenges. I think various of us have also done sort of marathons and things like that. I think the multi-day sort of adventure where, you're kind of just doing something completely different for a few days and just having to adapt and learn. I think, I think it's great for the soul. I think it makes you realize there's so much more to life than just perhaps the train tracks that you're otherwise headed down.
I mean, inquiring minds want to know two things. A, is the cabin done? And B, is there a picture of said cabin?
The cabin is done, and there are pictures. I'll maybe share one in a second. You can edit that in the right place. Yeah.
Phil, does Whynde's story resonate with you? Have you experienced anything like that? Starting from scratch, feeling like you suck at everything, and you starting over with something.
I have done that. I'm trying to know about doing that this year so much. It probably is something that doesn't come immediately to mind. But I just want to soak in the learning from Whynde, which is, we can get ourselves into a spot where what we're doing is so rote and we're simply always exploiting what we've learned as opposed to exploring new things, that we might not only forget what it means for us, but what it means for the folks around us for whom the material we are presenting as experts is brand new to them. Right. And so we have to we have to meet them where they are and help them come forward. It's why they got us to come in to do this to begin with. But I think it's easy to forget that not everybody knows what we know, and that we have to meet them there. And we are in fact going to guide them through these early bits. So I love that. And of course, I mean, I'm still gobsmacked at Whynde's story. And I'm thinking that it's what did we do? I did hear someone this year talk about how do I invoke wonder into my life at regular intervals, right? And so he has a plan where every quarter he does something he's never done before, and he does that in order to keep his thinking fresh. So I like that a lot. I think, I like that from Whynde's point of view. It's a thing I'd like to swallow a little bit and, kind of figure out how I might incorporate a little bit more wonder in my life. I think it's a good thing. So
you got to chew on it. You got to chew on it first before you swallow it.
I said swallow, and I really meant ruminate. And then I was going to backtrack it. And I thought regurgitating is not what I wanted to do. So that was kind of gross. So I really kind of avoided that. So thank you, Chris, for nurturing me to that point where I can go ahead and talk about puking this back up and chewing
That's right. That's what I'm here for. I'm
a ruminant by nature anyway. So there you go.
Oh, I know. No, that's awesome. That's really, really cool, Whynde. What kind of boat is it?
It's a Hubbard Rossi.
So I thought you were going to say
that boat. What does that mean? How long is that boat?
Oh, I'm forgetting. I know this. I'm not going to say.
Is this 10 feet or 30 feet?
No, much longer.
27.
Yeah. No, I should know this. I really should know this. I can't believe I forgot this, but I'm not going to.
One sail and a jib.
It's got a mainsail as well as a head sail. Yeah. And it's a very seaworthy boat, which is what I like about it. So it can sail, and it has sailed to other countries from Norway, which I think is really cool.
So you've made it to Shetland?
Solo endeavor that you're doing? You're going to go by yourself, or you have
No, the key thing to all of this is my husband, who's been sailing since he could breathe and is very good.
Well, that's handy.
And long distance. So that's what makes it possible. So I just need to get good enough to sail, so he can sleep at night, and then we can go to Shetland.
And is he your instructor in the sailing?
He is my instructor. Yes,
How's that going? Is that working out?
It's I'm a very tenacious learner. So I can be an intense learner, show me the knot again. Let's do it again. Let's practice. But he's amazing, actually. He's really amazing. Great. And it's also learning the subtleties of reading wind and water. It's like you're learning from a master,
Right. Very cool. Ollie, you got that photo.
I love this even more. I love it even more now. Yeah. But that's a proper cabin. I thought we'd see a lean-to or something when we were done, but no, it's a proper cabin there.
Yeah, no, this is
wow.
7 meters one direction for the other. And the shed that was there before was probably, about a third to a half the size. So it was, so we kind of had some of the ground prepared, but we had to do a lot of groundwork in April in the UK, which was rather wet.
I was going to say muddy. So, look at that, right? So there's a really good practical example of exactly what Whynde's talking about. And so anyone can do this, right? Maybe cabins or sailing isn't your thing, but there's plenty that, and I think Phil, you sort of alluded to this, and certainly we've talked about this over the past year. especially some of the Reddit posts that we talked about, right? Where people get so disillusioned or caught up or like, I can't escape this rat race, right? I'm in, they keep dragging me in, I can't get out. This could be one way to sort of reset, right? Your thinking without having to leave the career entirely.
Right. Yeah. In fact, if that's where you're looking, you might get your sense of wonder in sailing or cabin building or mountain climbing or biking or whatever that might be for you, right? There's just lots of places you could go try something new in the world. So yeah, that might be exactly what you need to kind of to settle your thinking at work. I don't need one activity in my life to deliver all that I need.
Really good way of putting it. Love that.
Yeah.
Oliver,
well, thank you, Whynde.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
Oliver, it also occurs to me that, our jobs are so conceptual, right? So to have built something so physical that you can see in front of you must be an incredible feeling too.
That's 100% why I think it took me a while to realize why I quite like working with wood and doing DIY stuff in the house. It's because, I mean, partly because my dad and granddad and so on were quite handy. But it's exactly that. It's that I get frustrated at not having like real things. So producing real things is important to me. And so if I was reincarnated, it would perhaps be as a carpenter who actually knew what they were doing properly. But
what I love about this, right, is you're an architect.
Yeah.
Right. Here's an actual physical thing, and you took it from strategy to execution.
Indeed, but I came across some people problems along the way.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Awesome. Hey, Oliver, what's one takeaway you had from this year? What's something that the cats can learn from you?
I think for me, it's been prioritization and focus, and realizing that I have a bit of a squirrel brain. Call that neurodiverse, call it ADHD, whatever you like. But I think it can be a superpower, like just being really curious and being very reactive. I'm the kind of cat that's incredibly reactive. So where you have lots of people on consulting engagements that are, working away for clients, I'm generally not. I'm maybe overseeing a few, or I'm involved a little bit in a few, but I'm the kind of person that has the luxury of the role where I can respond to things and look for opportunities and so on and so forth, which is great. The problem with that is it requires self-discipline that I sometimes lack, right? And I found myself on a few times this year just with way too many concurrent threads running, right? Just like, come on, Oliver, what's going on here? You've started so many different things, but where are you? And recognizing I'm not a great completer finisher, and then trying to find and partner with colleagues who are better at that. And it's kind of, I've always sort of wondered, why am I not as effective as I'd like to be? And I think it's the big learning for me is just being quite honest with myself and like going, actually, no, do you know what? There is an innate kind of just chaos monkey thing going on with me where I just, how do I describe it? Some the other day, it was like wild octopus or some wild octopus tentacle brain, right? It's kind of just, I have to rein that in. Sometimes there's a place for it. It's great. Sometimes I make new discoveries, new connections. But sometimes I need to like rein in the octopus and go, you know what? No, you're turning off email, you're turning off LinkedIn, you're turning off notifications, and you are just focusing on the 2 to 3 things today that actually are going to move the needle. I think it's been really hard, and I'm not getting it right all the time, but I think that for me is in a work context has been my biggest learning is like just know when to be more focused and not beat myself up about the fact I'm not doing all the things that I'd love to be doing. Like actually, no, sometimes less is more, and that's okay. And being okay and kind to myself that I'm not saving the world on lots of different fronts. No, it's okay this week just to get some stuff done.
Yeah. And, I think that's really applicable to consulting, right? Because especially strategy consulting, where oftentimes you're not there for when the thing is getting done, right? Or the strategy, we would like to be, right? We all want to be strategy through execution, but a lot of times it's not, right? Or the engagement is not, or the client's not ready for the execution part. And so you kind of roll off and you go, so you never get that satisfaction of like having completed something, right? It's like, we left a strategy, but like, what's that? It's useless unless you do something with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I can uncover a whole bunch of different opportunities, but if I'm not following through at least a few of them that look promising, then I'm not being as effective as I could be. So it's it's still a work in progress, if I'm honest.
Is that, I don't know, guys, what do you think? Is that sheer like just prioritization, or is that is there something else there at play with, like, I don't know, saying no, right, and things of that nature? Because there's one thing to take on too much by saying yes to everything because you want to do stuff. It's another thing to, like, no, I have the capability to complete this set of work, but I've got the squirrel brain and I'm constantly like shifting, and I don't have focus. Maybe it's a focus thing. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Focus
or impulse control.
Go ahead, Phil.
I'm sorry, I was like right on top, and it was a pretty good line, but I said it's poor impulse control. You know, I mean,
which we all have, right? We all have this at some level,
yeah,
right?
Well, we all have to wrestle with impulse control at one point or another, right? We see a shiny thing and we want to go do that, right? So that's that part of us likes. There's a novelty seeking component of our thinking, and I get that. So yeah, I think I really wanted to take notes while Oliver was talking and write down every animal he mentioned as he was going through it, right? Because he started with some squirrel and then
octopus.
There was the monkey, and then it came to the angry octopus. And I was like, I mean, I would have said monkey mind at the very beginning, but he was just everywhere with it, which was him demonstrating the technique. He was selling the point while he was talking. And I loved that, right? So, but I think
it was a veritable menagerie of animals, right? I mean, you know.
I agree. Yeah, it was just fantastic. Yeah, I think, and Oliver, if I were to ask, just out of curious, just kind of puzzle to test you for a second, what's the outcome of taking on every brand new opportunity like that and being excited about it and saying yes to it? What happens? You've already said this once. I just want to see if you'll say it again.
Yeah, not an awful lot happens, right? Because you're flipping between one thing to the next before you've actually made progress on something. And I think it's interesting because I read something, I think, fairly recently, which is like, there's one thing that the brain really hates, and that's boredom. And I feel like I have that dialed up to 11. Like, I go through my worst phases mental health wise if I'm not engaged and stimulated enough. And I think now I recognize that it's like balancing that now, like going, okay, I need to give myself the stimulation and the diversity, but I also need to kind of achieve, I need to achieve things and make things happen, particularly in the role I'm in. So it's finding that balance. And I think it's been really hard this year because of the Cambrian style explosion, I think, of innovation around AI. I mean, like, we had excitement like in 2023, but this year it's just been crazy. Like keeping up with like what's going on is, let alone experimenting and trying some of these things out, is a nightmare. And that doesn't help with. It just feels like at the moment I just get more and more distracted by new shiny things. And to your point about prioritization, like how you prioritize is getting harder and harder. Like with all these different things vying for your attention, I think is really difficult.
Right. That's Oliver, a takeaway I was going to bring up as well. I mean, I think it's focus, sure, yes, prioritization, but it's boundaries. And I like that you said it's sort of being kind to yourself as well, because we are in a very different world. We have so much more coming at us, and we feel compelled to be part of it. We feel like we need to be changing the world. And so just to take the time to turn off and focus, I think is good. And I think it'll inspire other people to do so as well.
And I think consultants have a hard time with that, right? Just by nature. You want the thing, and I got to be involved in everything. And depending on how your level of micromanagement and control, right? Like, how deep do you need to be into every slide that the team is, or whatever it might be, right?
I had some really interesting feedback this year. We went through a bit of a program of improving feedback that we will give each other at my place, and some really interesting.
Is this at home or work?
At work, yeah.
Okay, just curious.
I haven't implemented the 360 feedback mechanism in the home yet. Maybe that's where I'm going wrong.
I've tried that. Let me talk to you before you do it. Yeah.
But the feedback was like that people loved my ideas and invention and creativity, but that I needed to be careful not to be so squirrely, like I was talking about earlier, when it came to the team actually building on some of the R&D initiatives that I've sponsored, because there's a danger that I'm constantly shifting them as well. So actually, knowing when the time is like, right, I've given them the brief, I've given them the direction, I now need to step away from the detail, or I will get involved too much. I'll be too dominating, and I just need to let them run with it. And that's been a really challenging thing for me this year. Is like I've had all these exciting research projects going, and it's like, when do I get involved? When do I not? Because not enough sponsorship isn't good enough, right? These things won't have the vision or the understanding of what they need to achieve. But too much, and all of a sudden, the people are disengaging because they don't feel like they get a chance to input. So that was an extension of the squirrelness has been an interesting bit of learning for me this year as well. Anyway, I'll stop and I think we should throw the ball to you, Chris. I'd love to know what your.
I thought you had at least like 18 other subjects that you wanted to cover.
I do, but I'm getting better, right? I'm
that was self-editing. That was great. The filter. I saw the filter come down. Right. It was like, okay.
Yeah. More animals.
Yeah, no more animals. My takeaway is taking risk, right? Look, let's just be perfectly honest. You get to a certain point in life, you're comfortable. If you're a consultant, you've probably done okay financially. You're not living in the woods, right? You're doing okay. You're fine. You're comfortable. And then you begin to sort of adopt this like retrenchment or entrenchment, right? Like I have to protect what I've got, right? And I gotta, all this sort of stuff. And risk is not conducive, right, to maintaining what you have. Usually, right, you're putting at risk things that if it goes terribly wrong, right, like Bitcoin in the past week, right, like then you've got something at risk that you value. But I think what a lot of us always forget, right, is there's another word that goes with risk, and that word is reward, right? There is a balance here. It's like if you're a consultant, it's like a business case, right? It's pros and cons. It's all of those things. And I think so often, I personally, and I think a lot of people do, have focused on the risks. Like, I can't risk this, or if I do this, then what happens if this? And it's like, well, there's a lot of what ifs, right? There's always a what if. There's always inflection points in decisions, right? And trying to which I've always tried to do, is like project and predict 15 steps down. And what I've come to is that's like a fool's errand, because the number of different paths that are going to, the decision tree, right, kind of thing. Trying to map all that out ahead of time. Maybe I'm too old. I just don't have the energy for it. I don't, so the risk part is yeah, I'm going to do things that I've never done before. Probably going to fail at them, right? Have failed at some of them already, right? And doing things that I've been comfortable doing, probably not going to do those things anymore, right? And really try to change it up, because I think I'm at a point in my life where it's like, if I just continue in the comfy zone that I'm in, where does that go? I'm on my deathbed, and they ask, what great granddaddy, what was the one thing that you learned? Well, I never took any risk, and I was very comfortable. Is that what it? No, right? First of all, I don't want to die in a bed with great grandchildren around. I'm going to be the first man to be sucked out of the space station, on Mars, right? And be Arnold Schwarzenegger in we got to go to Mars, right? And his eyeballs are bulging. That'll be me. I'll be the first one. I think risk is something we always have to look at the reward side of that column, because there is reward potentially, right? And that's my thing. I don't, how applicable is that for everyone else? I don't know. I mean, certainly when you're younger, you can take bigger risks because you have less to put at stake. And I think as you get older, kids, college tuition, right, all this sort of stuff, there's more reason to not take big risk. But I'm trying to go the other way, because I think I've gone too far in the risk avoidance area. So I'm doing new things, treading new ground.
Yeah, I love it.
How do you know what the right amount of risk is? I mean, how do you determine that for yourself?
I think that's got to be a real personal thing, right? You got to reflect on that. And especially if you're thinking about your career, right? So we've talked about if you're a consultant and you're like, I want to leave E&Y and I want to go to a boutique firm or whatever. There's risk there, right? But I mean, what is your personal threshold for risk? What are you willing to put at risk? What are you willing to lose totally and do without completely? Because I think that's the calculus that you have to come into. But I think we frequently do that piece. I think we infrequently think about well, what happens if it all works out the way I think it's going to work out? What does that look like? Because that's the aspirational thing, right? And I think just over time, I've lost the aspirational bit. I'm just constantly worried about the one side of the column. I don't know. I think it's personal.
Yeah, I don't know either. That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, for me, it's like I am willing to lose all of this in order for a shot at that.
You get sucked out of a airlock at a space station
on Mars
for failing to follow orders. Yeah,
I was trying to get to the chopper. Right. Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right that it is easy to get to a point in your life and career where you become entrenched. You become brittle. You begin to not take risks, not because you're not contemplating the reward, but because you're not even willing to be uncomfortable. Julius Caesar said that, it's
I don't want to cross the river. It's too wet. I don't want to cross the river.
He said it's far easier to find men to die for a cause than it is to find men to be uncomfortable while fighting.
There you go.
And I think this is particularly true of big consulting firms, right? Where there is almost there's a production line, there's a progression process, there's disciplines that you sit in, and there's also kind of a lot of cultural norms that, and so standing out sometimes is a risk in itself. So kind of choosing to do a different path and stand out is. So yeah, I think there's a whole bunch of things there for consultants. Because, Chris, you're right that perhaps more junior, you can take some risk. But actually, my experience of certainly of the big consultancies has been that the more junior you are, actually, the more afraid you are of upsetting your lords and masters and and people above you. So often they're the people that are the least sort of willing to get out of their lane. It's kind of it's the people that probably maybe senior manager, director that are perhaps trying some new things because they're trying to win business or build a business case for their promotion upwards. So it's an interesting one, isn't it?
I mean, it ties into goal setting, which we've talked about before. Like, well, what am I trying to achieve by taking this risk? Like, it's all that kind of thing. But something I learned in the Army, I'm not going to say how long ago it was. It's 30 years ago, right? Holy cow. It was 30 years ago. I learned this lesson and I've applied it, as I'm sure you will no doubt understand when I say what it is, but I've applied it throughout my life. And I think it's time to let it go, which is don't be first, don't be last, and never volunteer. Right. And the reason it's exactly what you were saying, Oliver, which is if you're standing out of the crowd, you're a target, you're a whatever, you're, pick me, right? Like that kind of stuff. It's like, just keep your powder dry, keep quiet, do your thing, get through it, move along, don't stand out, right?
And we may have talked about this before, but there's an evolutionary reason why that is innately what we do, right? Because standing out from the tribe gets you rejected from the tribe, and then you don't survive long on your own in the wild. Yeah. So it's kind of.
Right. And I mean, think about it in a physical sense. If you're the gazelle on the edge of the herd, right? You want to be in the middle of the herd where, the hyena doesn't even see you, or the cheetah 100%. Doesn't even see you. Right, be invisible. Yeah. I think was the mantra, and that all goes to really risk avoidance if you think about it, right?
I think coming back to the uncomfortable point,
I got to jettison that. I don't want to do that anymore. Yeah, Phil, I know you journal all these things. You must have a dozen things you learned this year. Come on, give us one nugget that the cats can learn something from.
Yeah, I think 2024 for me, because, I've been involved in running quite a number of groups this year, and I've had to lean in. And some of those, I run all via Zoom. I mean, some are in person, but some are like all that you're just these groups meeting on Zoom. And some you're actually using other tools like WhatsApp or groups of some sort to kind of keep them together, online kind of things. And, what I've learned is something that other people have talked about, but, I had to kind of see that this is where I was headed and what was going to happen when I got it right. And that is that culture matters. Peter Drucker used to say that culture eats strategy for breakfast. I have seen that play out now so many times in my life that I finally paid attention and said, what I've been doing here is establishing culture inside these groups. What does psychological safety looks like? What does it look like for us to say it's okay for people to speak out? What does it look like in the way that we're going to talk to each other? How are we going to document what it is we talk about? And by establishing culture, I've taken to some groups, different groups, to real peak experiences this year that they'd not been at previously. And it was mostly because I understood what it meant to actually do the work of establishing culture.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. That's that was brilliant. That was mic drop.
No, thanks. Yeah. I think if you don't get it right, like how are we going to talk to each other? Like I'm not talking on top of Whynde Kuehn. She gave me permission to kind of keep going. But in that bit, it's like if we don't talk about how we're going to talk to each other, what does a conversation look like? What does collaborative conversation look like in this space? And we don't practice that, it just falls apart.
I love this so much, Phil, and I love the intent and the design, right, of culture, because it's like the fertile bed, like you're saying, that everything, every meeting, every company, every strategy rests on top of. And we spend so much time on like the hard stuff and not like this underlying factor. So I think that's great, and we all need a lot more of that.
You talked about that in your book, Strategy to Execution, didn't you, Whynde? About like establishing the culture so that you can perpetuate the business architecture stuff into the future and practice that as embed it in the culture.
100%. And to that point, I always say it's not an architecture journey. It's a human journey. It's not about the architecture. It is about the ways of thinking and working that we're trying to establish. That's just a mechanism to get there. Exactly. Couldn't agree more.
If you're just a associate level 3 at, whatever, Deloitte or whatever it is, what can you incorporate? You're not setting the culture of the team, right? You're part of a culture. How do you incorporate that into what you're doing?
I think you can make choices, can't you, around what culture do you choose to follow? Because there will be multiple leaders and examples of different behaviors. And I think this is the fascinating thing for me about these organizations is you have some people who manage to find a way to sort of navigate their way through, that they're staying ethical, they're staying true to themselves. I think, yeah, as someone earlier on in their career journey at an organization like that, you've got choices about who you emulate and who you follow in terms of that culture that's set. Because I think there are bad behaviors that you can potentially kind of fall into. And maybe they work, maybe they kind of get revenue, what have you, help you with your billable hours target, whatever. But there's also people that manage to navigate this in a way that is more ethical and builds a more positive culture. I think it's dangerous sometimes just to kind of go, do you know what, my team's doing this, I'm going to carry on doing it, even when you can see other teams that aren't. So I think it's hard though, right? It's hard to kind of buck the trend. It goes back to that point about standing out. But I think sometimes I think that's the choice you have as that junior is how are you going to achieve what you want to achieve? You can do it the cheating way, or you can do it the sort of more honorable way. And it's up to you to kind of make that choice.
I think that's great, Oliver. And as a junior associate, I think you can play a role in asking questions and codifying, right? Codifying. So, maybe there are principles or things that you're writing down, right? Culture is symbols and all, this collection of things, or how we work, asking questions, writing it down, bringing it forth. I think you can draw attention in that role as well. And
I mean, look, even if you're a junior consultant, you're still you're going to be rapidly senior to even more junior people. Do you know what I mean? The first couple steps is a pretty rapid promotion cycle, right?
Yeah.
Relative to like when you get later on. But so you're gonna suddenly be associate 3 and maybe leading a work stream, maybe on a team or something. You're gonna have junior resources. So I think this thing about culture, right, Phil, that you're talking about establishing culture, I think it's something that, first of all, they don't teach it as far as I'm aware, right, of how to think like that and do that. They do, I think they talk about like, do the ethical thing and that sort of, but like this, like how the way of working for the team, I don't think is really taught very well at any firm that I've ever been at. And so, Phil, I think this is great because any junior level resource can take that into consideration. Now, they may not know exactly how to do it. Is there a book or something they should go read? Like, I don't know, but like
Nicomachean Ethics. Aristotle wrote a whole book on this, and you can just go and read Aristotle.
Aristotle. Yeah. Start with the ancient Greeks and work your way up. But yeah, no, I think like they can inculcate that, right, and bring that into their toolkit.
Yeah. So let me just answer that question for you. I think that's where you were headed with this, but let's just put a point on this. You can be a beacon of culture and virtue wherever you are. And yes, your light may only shine so far, but you will have an influence on those around you. And that's all you need to get started. So it's not just okay to do the right thing. It's the right thing to do the right thing, right? And other people will simply follow your example because they'll see that it works.
You're giving me a sense of wonder about this.
Yeah.
I love it.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good. How about do we have nominations for like a thing of the year?
Mine's a little silly, but that's okay. Let me see if I can get this. And do you all see a screen?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Are you sure you can see? Because I don't see you.
Yep.
All right.
I see a black thing. Yeah.
See a black.
Yeah.
All right. So mine's a little silly, but this one episode actually won 3 awards from me. The first, so this is episode 69, the one about unlearning, which feels like it's really on theme. And can you see that? Can you see the award up there? Okay, cool. All right. So first of all, I thought it was award for the most important topic for exactly the things we're talking about here. On a sillier note, I also gave this the funniest moment award. And Oliver, I am so bummed that you were not on this episode because you would have brought so much to it. But so do you all remember there's this moment where Pete's talking about, and Pete Cafarcio was our guest, and he's talking about this Korean spa. And then he talks about how they were naked in the spa, and then they kind of get used to that. And then he starts talking about doing karaoke and all these other things. Do you guys remember that?
I do, yes.
And then Chris says, I don't have naked Korean karaoke on my list. So it was a misunderstanding by all of us. He was talking about this community and other things, but we were all wondering where he was going with this. And so that also gave my third and final award, which was the best cast reactions.
Look at our faces. Look at our faces.
I'm horrified. And then look at
the one eyebrow.
Exactly. So
Wow.
episode
incredulity. Yeah.
That's my share.
That is fantastic. That is fantastic.
Wow, that's amazing.
Oh, wow. That was a great topic, right? About unlearning. And we talked a little bit about it, I think, last week in Minneapolis when we were talking about, right? This is an upcoming episode of the podcast, which was recorded live in front of a conference in Minnesota. But and like unlearning and like how do we the things that we've learned that got us to where we are, they worked and they got us to where we are for a really good reason. But can those things keep us moving in the direction that we want to go? And so are there things that we have to unlearn and then replace those things with like sort of new learning to take us in the direction we want to go? And I thought that was a great topic and a great subject. And I really liked that episode. That's great. And it was funny.
And it was funny.
Yeah. So yeah, my thing for what I think was the most interesting thing for me, or like my thing for this year. Can you all see this?
Yeah.
This is a picture. Yeah. It was posted on LinkedIn. I forget who posted it. I reposted it. It got like, I don't know, 10,000 views or whatever, but like lots of comments, lots of engagement, right? And I really like this. And here's why. Because like the business architecture conference that we were at last week, Whynde, enterprise architecture always seems to have this recurring, like, what are we? What do we do? Right? What do we provide? Is it part of this? Is that part of it? Right? This sort of constant questioning of, and I think we've talked about that on this podcast before, right? So what I like about this, it's just how succinct and clear it is, to me at least. Enterprise architecture is the architecture of the enterprise, which may sound obvious, not its information systems, which may sound really not obvious to a lot of people. And I think a lot of people think it is. It's like, it's IT and it's, blah, blah, blah. And that second paragraph, right? It's the company's architecture. If you take the word enterprise out, you replace it with the word company, it begins to make more sense, right? I think it's the company's architecture. So that's going to include business stuff. It's going to include IT stuff. It is not in and of itself business architecture or IT architecture. Those are their own disciplines and practices, but it references them, right? There's a Venn diagram in there somewhere, right, of what that looks like. So I really like this because it, to me, really concentrates and focuses in on what EA is and is not. So I nominated that. What would be a good award for this? This should be like
best quote.
Best quote of the year. There you go. I love it. That's my take. That's my thing.
And I of course like this, Chris, too. And it also reminds us, it is the architecture of the organization. This is not just about mapping and writing stuff down. And it's certainly not just mapping IT systems. It's about being intentional about that design, right? And how it delivers on strategy and value. Love it.
And I think if you adopt that mentality, then a lot of these questions go away, right? Like a lot of the navel gazing, I think, begins to dissipate if you say, replace enterprise with company, right? And then you begin, it's not precise, but it's like you begin to get like this idea, like, okay, it's how the business is constructed, right? And how it operates. It's not what version of SAP am I running? All right, Oliver, how about what are you thinking here? What's your nomination for best something?
So my nomination for best something is best transatlantic conference presentation, which sadly, we haven't been able to share yet with the world because it's still tied up in police investigation and after
and that's a story. I mean, you can't just drop that, right?
Yeah.
Sure you can. Oh, that's great. We all know.
I literally had my statement taken over the phone by police literally a couple of days ago. That's how slow the process is taking. But anyway, so we're going to be a while, unfortunately, listeners, until.
And just for the listeners, I did not get Oliver arrested by the Metropolitan Police. There was nothing like that.
No.
Came close, but it wasn't. There was nothing like that. It was something else. But yes,
something else which we'll talk about when I could talk about it. Yeah. But the special moment for me was the three of us in the room and Big Phil on screen in London for the British Computer Society Enterprise Architecture Conference. Which I'll be honest, I've been to a few, and some years they're a bit dry. And I have to say, thank you for making it super special, like the buzz and energy from Whynde's keynote, and then our first experimental live recording of a podcast with almost like a studio audience, with the studio audience being the conference attendees, and it actually went really, really well. I mean, there's so many places where that could have fallen down. Phil could have gone, no, I can't be bothered to be the only person that's not physically there in the room, but you showed up, so thank you, Phil. The technology could have let us down, but luckily we didn't suffer too badly on that front. But yeah, the audience got involved. It was great. And I think it'll be one of the highlights of 2024 for me. So I just wanted to say thank you again for your support on that. And I thought it was a great moment. It's really cool.
By the way, when I was talking about taking risks earlier, that was part of it, right?
Great example. Great example.
I'm going to go do this thing. It's going to cost money. Yeah, I'm going to have some client conversations, but like that's not going to, you can't charge the client for a personal thing that I'm going to go do, right? Obviously. So it's like, that was a risk. Because what if it had gone wrong? What if it sucked? Then, it's like, wow, that was the risk. The reward is exactly what you're saying, right? It was awesome. And I cannot wait to get this video and cut it and put it out there because it was so good. And you're right. This is a society founded by Alan Turing. Do I have that right? Like 1945, something like that?
You've probably done more research than I have because you're great at doing that sort of historical research.
But, what I was really impressed with is, on the wall, the giant wax seal by Queen Elizabeth. This is a royal charter for like this institution.
Oh yeah, it's a proper chartered institution.
It's a proper thing.
Fairly serious, right? And
yeah.
Yeah.
And I've been a chartered
That
member
really
since
was
2011.
Yeah, that was fantastic. And it did feel awfully risky going into it. I mean, I had imagined all sorts of ways this could go wrong as we were trying to pull this off. And, I had deep concerns, but I had also said to myself, if it blows up, we'll deal with that when it blows up. I mean, we'll just fix that when it comes, right? And I was like, once I'd gotten to that part, which I had, like I said, lots of concerns, but, past that point, oh my God, it worked so well. We thought we could do this again, right? We could do this as often as we wanted. And since then, right, I've spoken to 2 conferences in Australia, right, without ever leaving this chair, right? And one of them, I'm sorry, in the end, they ended up both being, it was recorded. But the cool thing was I'm recording with the conference presenters as though we were live, and then they run it as a live to tape kind of a thing at the event. And so I've done 2 conferences in Australia without ever getting on an airplane.
Wow.
In addition to the 2 things I've done with you guys. So
I love that you brought this up, Oliver. That was a really special podcast. And just to all these themes, risk. I mean, now we've done another one since that. And we can say 2024 was the year we started doing live podcasts, and we will continue. Right?
Yeah. I mean, if you had told me in 2018 that we were going to be on stage in front of, a couple hundred people or whatever, riffing and making it up as we went along, and that it would turn out great, I would have really, I would have had the Phil raised eyebrow, right? Like, really? But it has. It's gone so well. It speaks to the chemistry, the culture, right, that we have among the 4 of us.
Yeah, I agree.
You see what I did there?
Yeah, I saw the callback.
Yeah,
good work.
And one day, Phil will get around to proving to us that he is a real, genuine human and not just an AI avatar that Chris has invented to join his podcast.
I'd like to confirm your suspicion, Oliver, but I am just a large language model without access to the web. I really thought by the time we got to me or whenever we did this, that everyone would have hit AI hard every which way, but you guys all went really kind of personal. So my favorite, we can all talk about the rise of the platforms. That was clearly the thing that happened in 2024, right? The platforms got really strong. My favorite thing this year was the insight that where we are at this moment in time with AI is where the Catholic Church was with necromancy at one point. They basically had an entire unit of people designed to they said what they were doing was summoning demons, and that they would get imperfect information, and that that what they would get might in fact lead them astray one way or another. But it was big money for them, so they were well entrenched in this bit. And so I think we are in the phase where AI for us is like summoning a demon every time we do it. And we might get a good answer, we might get a bad answer. And it's crazy. There's a tool, there's a thing that I've set up this year that I've used for many months in a row, and it's worked beautifully. And this week, for the first time, it just started delivering wrong answers. It has been right. It's on my own data set. I will throw my own data set, ask it this question. It has given me right answers 8 months in a row. And this week, it's just wrong on my own data set. And I'm like, I have no idea what happened there, but now I have to go figure that out. But again, my point being that this is, in fact, if we have to figure out what our relationship is going to be with AI, and we can see that as a culture, we're all working that out. And I mean, big C culture, right? Everyone trying to say, I don't know, maybe it's just cool stuff, or, maybe this is my new girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, it's my new best friend. I don't have to talk to real people. It could be that, you see these cats talking to their AI like it was their friend. I don't know what is going to happen. And I think interesting things are going to happen, and not all of them are good, but we are clearly in that mode where we could, if we stuck in our head that I'm summoning something and I shouldn't trust the answer, it's got a good likelihood of being correct, but it might be wrong. I think we'd be in a better spot in making decisions around AI output.
So the title of your nomination is what? Best technology, best societal impact.
Best metaphor of 2024. Best metaphor of 2024.
AI
is necromancy. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I had to go and Google necromancy. I kind of initially thought it was something else. So that I'm glad I Googled it. But
yeah. Okay. I thought it was going to be like alchemy. I thought that's where you were going to go with that. You know, like we're going to get the philosopher's stone and turn it into gold or whatever, right?
But I love that Phil's brought this up, because this is actually the subject of my blog series, the latest blog series that I'm writing. And I think, Chris, you've seen the preview that I put out on LinkedIn. But it's kind of like, I think a lot of people are just caught up in the moment of excitement around what it can do right now. And this is unusual, right? People get very obsessed with the short term, and they don't stop to think, hang on, if this plays out, this isn't just going to be positive for my organization. People are going to be using this technology to me and my organization. And what does that mean? So my IP is being scraped by thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of bots in ways that I've not intended, because I've built my systems for humans to use. All of a sudden, we have exploitation of platforms that were built for humans being used at scale by machines in ways that people had no intention. I draw a parallel to kind of APIs. When banks, particularly here in Europe, were forced to kind of open up people's balances and information for third-party services, they had to start exposing systems online through APIs that were always intended to sit behind the firewall. So we're kind of going to go through some really interesting technological and social sort of impacts that we have with social media. I mean, like, I still think we're reeling from the impacts of social media and like the algorithm's influence on behavior and thinking. This is even more extreme, right? It's happening across multiple modalities. You don't just have text, you've got video, you've got images. The latest craze seems to be these video models and even better image models, which are kind of mind-blowing. And I think it's like people at the moment kind of just wowed by it and go, okay, how do I bake this into my marketing process, whatever? Not going, but hang on, how does this impact the bigger picture? And so that's the subject of my thinking and writing at the moment, is, and which will be dropping over the sort of next few weeks, is what does this mean for like not just technology, but there will be an element of that, of course, there always is, but like business models, value, a whole bunch of different things. And so that's why I love you've brought this up, because I think it is a moment to kind of go, if this thing takes off, and of course there is still doubts in some people's minds whether some of this stuff will work, for Phil's point. It's not always repeatable and sometimes causes issues. But assuming this thing takes off, what is really going to be the big impact to not just my business, but my entire industry and the ecosystem around it?
Will my business still exist, right? This is the buggy whip thing that we talked about at the beginning of the year, right? Was the buggy whip moment. We're all making buggy whips because we're all buying buggy whips because we all need to, drive the cart and the horse and all that. And the reality, of course, is that the Model T is coming along, and we don't need a buggy whip anymore. But it's going to change society. It has changed society. And I think the problem, is, to your point, we have yet to come to terms with social media, and it's been around for 20 years, 25 years. The late 90s, you go back, it was really social media, right? MySpace, ICQ, like AIM, right? Like you had all this stuff that was proto social media, and you had 20-something years to deal with it. We haven't. AI is changing every week. Like I don't know how you could even have time to contemplate the impact, let alone react and adapt to the impact of the thing. Maybe smart people will figure out how to use AI to do that, right? It's like it's meta. You use AI to react to AI. Anyway, that was good, Phil. And so best. What'd you call it? The best.
Best metaphor.
Best metaphor.
Yeah.
AI is modern necromancy. Love that.
Yeah.
Well, listen, folks, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you guys. It was great seeing you guys in person. I'm the only one that's seen everyone in person. Right.
Look at that.
I know. I've seen Oliver twice in person this year. Whynde twice in person this year. Phil, I think I've seen you once. I may have seen you once in person this year. I think I've seen you the least out of everyone here. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that wild?
It's possible. I don't think that's true. I think we've met for beers more than once this year.
That's possible.
Yeah.
Some would say that happens.
And we've tried a couple more times. It just doesn't seem to work,
Phil's subtly been trying to distance himself from you, but
Yeah. Well, again, he may not be real. Right? So it's like, he's a hologram actually, well, I'll bring him in that box that they put the holograms in, right? And, for conferences and, oh, there we go. There he is. He's a cat. There's the cat that we've been talking about.
I'm that cat. Really? Yeah. I don't know why.
By the way, that's what he really looks like. The rest of it is just AI filter.
When I don't have my AI filter on, I look just like this. Phil the cat.
Phil the cat. That's great. Listen, hopefully everyone has a good holiday. Thank you everyone for watching and for following us for the year. Please go like and subscribe. Check out the merch that we have. We got merch. We got some mugs. Ollie, you said you were wearing a shirt. Yeah. We got. Yeah.
These are dual-purpose coffee mugs. Dual-purpose coffee mugs. By the way, let me give you a tip. Two things. First off, I want to prove to you you can put things other than coffee into the mug. And the second thing,
is that Liberty Pole bourbon?
That is Liberty Pole. Yeah, yeah, Liberty Pole. Yeah, my hometown rye whiskey maker. And the other thing is, if you're on a Zoom call, remember, if you want people to think it's coffee, blow on it every once in a while so people think it's hot. And then finish your Manhattan.
Yes, Phil's in the Christmas spirit now.
Just recorded the cold open right at the end of the episode there.
I know, there we go.
Tip.
That was beautiful.
Tip. Yeah.
Awesome. So check out the merch. The coffee cup can double as masking your early morning alcohol shot. And definitely, you should check out the Patreon site too, because as sweet as this content is, some of the other stuff is even cooler. And, for a few extra bucks, you get to see all the cool stuff that we do. So listen, everybody, thank you. Thank you all for watching. I'm Chris Lockhart, Oliver Cronk, Phil Yanov, Whynde Kuehn. See you all next time. Cheers, mate. At a certain point, it's just going to be like, it'll just be like the old guy on the in the rocking chair with the shotgun, right? Get off my lawn.